This video is about blind guides. Jesus, Jesus, when he met up with the religious leaders, is interesting. Things haven't changed a whole lot. I can't speak for every one of them, of course. It is a high responsibility to, in any way, shape, or form, taking on a role where you're going to be influencing other people. And some people claim they've heard from God, and so they're going to become pastors or preachers or leading a church or whatever. The old adage goes, if you don't have the goods, don't show up, right? The older you get, you you really come to terms with the fact that life and people and the stuff that goes on within people are really complex. Even to sit there, even David even said to Lord, quiet my mind from the things that are too complex for me, because it is. Even just when it comes to God and why people will give up on God and all these other things, and it really gets to be complex. There was a saying in the Bible where it said that a guy said, why is the wicked always prospering? Them who don't know you, they seem to always get along just fine. They're always prospering. They're always doing well. Nothing seems to bother them. They're not troubled like other men. Their eye bulges with abundance. Pride is their necklace, and basically violence are in their hearts. But, they're not phased like other people that get troubled. And it said only till he went into the house of God, then he got the answer. That God has allowed a slippery path, and he doesn't want people to get on it. They got on that slippery path. The less troubled people are, and I'm saying I'm not promoting trouble, okay? Because nobody likes trouble. Some troubles that people bring to their lives, they bring it upon themselves. So there's a kind of a having a balance with all this, right? Some people will go through in their life in the back of their mind. You think, hey, I think believing in God means that God needs to trouble me, right? And the Bible says no. The Bible says no. When God blesses you, He makes you rich, and He will add no sorrow to it. Whatever our riches means, if it's having money or whatever, one way or the other, you're going to be wholesome, right? Blind guides. The thing about people who take it upon themselves to think they puff themselves up and they think they're okay, that they be given something special by God to lead people. And I think just because they can have a building, they get up there and they prepare their their sermons, right? Their little talkity, that makes them equipped for the deep, complex issues that go on within. And when they can't solve those issues, they basically have all these glib answers as well, God's working in that person, God's dealing with you, God's sin, it's faith. There's all these things they come up with, and not really understanding the different variables or the dots that are joined into that person's life that creates their results right now. By the way, adding to that, whatever one person is today, they could change overnight to be a different person. And a lot of times the people change dramatically, not because for anyone else, because they have decided to change. That's where a lot of change comes about. God has created within every human being the deciding factor that we really are responsible for what goes on in our lives. Some of the responsibility that we've been given from dysfunctional beginnings, it's your responsibility to just drop it, let it go, right? But getting back to blind guides, I don't want to go off topic here. Jesus called them the blind leading the blind. And it's not because he says that a true one sent by him cares for the sheep. But he says with the hireling, he calls them hirelings. He says that when they see the wolf coming, they run and they let the sheep get slaughtered, right? See, he said because they don't care for the sheep. To become one who is going to have a leadership capacity in their life or influencing other people, a lot of times it's not something they go looking for, right? But because there's a level that they've reached in their life that they're able to influence other people. Sometimes even not by knowing they're doing it, but they'll do it. And should God call a person into any kind of service under his hand, right? They are going to be very caring, very careful, and they're going to understand that they don't have the stuff that is really required for the complexities of another human being, other unless God gives it to them. So they're very careful. This guy just recently who I just heard about him passing away, and he started going to this one church, and he was like, I think he was still getting addicted and all this stuff. And the church, I can't speak for all churches, but it seems some leaders seem to like it. If you don't come with a certain capacity to be of a service to the building that they build, and besides on this, they don't build people, they build buildings, right? People are basically just in the building. That's where blind guides go, right? That's the avenue they take. They really build buildings. They like their name on the deed for the land, but in reality, they can't lead people. They're incapable of it. And the one guy just recently I heard about who passed away, I phoned up the pastor. I phoned up I'm being careful of it anyway. From my perspective, I wouldn't call him a pastor, even though he thinks he is. And he said he basically kind of made it sound very light. Oh, well, he was come to church and that's the only thing I heard of. And he didn't really care about any follow up. The church where they were was like maybe blocks away from, about a block and a half from where this guy lived. And I was a little concerned what happened to the dog also, right? The dog, it was a really nice dog. He made no effort whatsoever. He didn't, as a matter of fact, didn't even think he really even cared. He sounded like that on the phone, like as this, like, I could take it or leave it right now, phone call, right? And people excuse a lot of this stuff when deep down inside, the first impression you get is like, wow, that person's not really that caring. That person's not really that, like going about blind guides is that when you take on a responsibility, especially something like this under the service, you said, I'm going to serve God. You better make sure that you're gonna be pulling out a whole lot of sacrifices, okay? Which means you're gonna extend yourself sometimes above and beyond, right? For the sake of other people's lives, to make sure that you've done everything you could to be the person that they probably didn't think anybody cared about them. You were that person to show them otherwise. Because when people are going on the pathway, any kind of path, and they're struggling, they're having things go on in their lives, they really can't find a way out. And one of the reasons is because the people around them don't have the way out themselves, and they're all stuck in the same cave trying to survive. Don't realize there's a beautiful, rich sunshine outside the cave. There's a whole new world they can go into. They don't know any of that. When pastors, or I should say guides, take on these roles and responsibilities, it's a very serious thing because God seems to point out that He will hold them highly accountable. And I mean, you're not just playing with semantics here. You're playing with people's lives. And from what I've gathered, I see ministers today have a kind of a aloof mentality, and they have the hired volunteers to take care of the ground work when they're the ones that should be doing it. And a lot of these guys sit back. I can't speak for a lot of them, but a few of them sit back and they basically enjoy the spoils. They enjoy the benefits, whilst their unpaid volunteers get to do all the dirty work and they get to basically have the money that's coming in their own ministry, as they would call it, when it's really just their own pocket. And we take a lot of these things for granted, and we try not to question it because we don't want to be displeasing to God. Now, when we take these mentalities into our life, it can cause us to actually be very welcoming to other forms of deception when we don't question those who are blind guides. Because when a person's blind, it's because they don't see clearly enough to understand that their conscience is not there anymore. They don't have conscience. And when people stop caring, it's advisable to stop caring about them. I'm not talking about the people who need help. I'm talking about these guys who place themselves in a higher place. When they stop caring, it's best not to care about them. And I do think, and I may be wrong in it, a lot of them needs to be starved out. In that way, those who really do have the value, who have the heart, who have the care and the compassion are the ones, because God, God is not as much as concerned with putting titles on people and all this other stuff. He's concerned about this job getting done and getting done well by those who are equipped by it. The titles were given to people as descriptive titles of what this person will be doing, right? So next time you walk into a church or wherever, any kind of where you are, ask yourself, is this person a blind guide? And do I want this person leading me? Because the Bible says that the blind leads the blind and they both fall into the ditch. And some point or another, if they don't know where they're going and they can't see, they're going to convince you well enough not to see their white stick that they're walking around in. And if you see more clearly than them, you know what? Don't ever give them the time of day. Because if you've grown in your life and they refuse to, and they think it's all just but a title and a job or a calling, well, that's it. But if they don't have the goods and they can't bring it, don't go to them. Don't ever sit underneath them on a Sunday or in any kind of capacity. Because what you're really doing, you are in subjection and submitting to yourself to something that's so clearly seen as something, as someone who's been rejected by God. So I'm just going to leave you with that. Blind guides are not worth the time, the energy, the effort, not even the money or anything. They're human beings just like you. And when they try to sell you that they got something, they've already sold themselves short as blind dwarfs who say they're guides. And the thing, one big lesson I'm still learning in life, if they haven't been there, if they haven't had the toughness of what other people have went through in life, they're not in any way, shape, or form. They're not have any credibility to speak into your life. So you all have a good day, and thank you, and like and subscribe.